What's going on, guys? This is going to be the first episode of Bacon Decker, a podcast that we will be doing together. If you guys aren't familiar with us, I'm Decker.
And I'm Baker, but we shortened it to Bake.
Yeah, it sounded better for the podcast. So this is going to be kind of a, honestly, just I think bi-weekly is what we're shooting for. We're going to talk a little bit about our lives, about how we met, and just experiences we have going through our lives. We were friends all through elementary school. I think that's something that we should start at, I think. Don't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the goal of this podcast right now is to kind of just give our stories and, spend some time with each other, reflecting on our lives up to this point, how we became friends, how we've grown together and apart, and just discuss how we just came together and supported each other. Yeah, I mean,
honestly, like best friends. Like,
yeah.
It's not like we just knew each other for a couple of years and like met in college or something. This is like
from childhood.
Preschool. Yeah, I mean, the first memories I have of school was together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember going down the hallway with my dad and being afraid to even go into the school, to leave my parents for the first time for a long period of time. School was scary to me. Right off the bat. And once we got into the classroom, I mean, one of the first memories I had was just kids running around, kind of getting to know each other, and met you. Like, I remember there was like the kitchen area under the Mrs. Thomas's like play area. The first thing, like, I think you were under there, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna hide under here because it's like a safe place. I didn't, I wasn't I wasn't very outgoing as a kid. I was the kid that played with Legos, played with like on video games and stuff like that.
I don't remember too much about the first day of preschool, I would say, and that probably has something to do with just the kind of the stress and probably excitement too. I don't remember too much. I know that I was excited for the first day though.
See, I was not. I was terrified.
But the days after that, I was like, oh, that's cool. We're gonna go to this building and I'm gonna get to go play with a bunch of other kids. That's cool. And then the next day, it's kind of like I don't want to do that anymore.
Which at this point, you were just, it was just you at the house, right? As far as like at home, you didn't have anybody to play with.
Well, I had Alyssa, my sister. She, of course, was just a year younger than me or so. So
see, Hunter and I were 3 years apart. Yeah. So when I went to preschool, I don't remember any at-home experiences that were like growing up with siblings. Hunter was just a baby, Mm-hmm. Like he was, I guess, 2. I think we were, you were 5 when you go to preschool, right?
I was 4.
4 or 5?
You turned 5 though because you're older.
My birthday. Yeah. Which, like I said, I think I was the largest kid in preschool. And then you were probably the smallest, to be honest. Like, you were one of the
I was born in July. On top of that, I was a premature baby. So,
I was not a premature baby. I come out baby.
Yeah, so I've always been scrawny. I'm still kind of skinny, to be honest, but...
I've definitely continued to be bulky.
But, no, so... That's actually funny that... The fact that, we're so different in size.
Yeah.
Our best friend,
Yeah, looking out for the little kid right away. But at the same time, the little kid was looking out at the big kid because I was the one that was actually afraid of being there. Just, not really afraid, but just nervous. Meeting people. I'm still not good with public speaking. This is different to me. Or anything on YouTube is different to me. Which is one of the big reasons I wanted to start doing YouTube is the public speaking aspect.
Yeah. I've always been nervous speaking in front of crowds too, and what really got me through that was actually in high school when they forced us to do presentations up in front of class.
Yeah.
And then in the Marine Corps, I had to give classes, and I learned to give classes, and it was in large groups of people, so I kind of developed that skill to actually address a crowd and teach and stuff like that. So that really broke me out of my shell, and honestly, I'm so thankful for that experience in the Marine Corps that allowed me to do that.
I don't remember, like you said, you may not remember the first day, but that's the only memory I remember of preschool. Like, I remember the classroom, I remember playing there, and nap time and things like that. But, I didn't know growing up that it was a shorter day in preschool.
Yeah,
it felt like a normal day. Yeah. Like, looking back, I was like, nah, preschool's the same amount of time as elementary school. But really, you left, I think it was midday. to go home, but it felt like a normal school day.
Right.
I don't remember it being shorter. There's moments I remember learning to tie my shoes in class and stuff like that was preschool for me. Like simple things that they help teach you. Which I mean, I knew how, but not comfortably enough to do it on my own. Yeah, they taught you all the tricks of tying your shoes and just basic like necessities of growing up. So I enjoyed preschool. I think some kids don't go to preschool, right? Like it's not mandatory. I think preschool is definitely a good thing to do to get your kid
kind of caught up to speed and kind of introduce him to like social cues and stuff.
Especially me. I mean, I stayed in my room. I didn't socialize that much with other people. As a kid, I was really, on my own. So I stayed in my room a lot compared to most kids are out playing, like playing in the dirt and mud and everything like that. I was more of just inside. So preschool gave me that like push into society sooner than later.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, and before I jump on this topic, I do want to kind of clarify some stuff. So where we grew up is kind of like, for those of you who don't know us, it's like BFE. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere, Richardsville, Kentucky. I mean, and for both of us, we lived out in the sticks.
Yeah, we were both on country roads, or at least I was for sure. We never hung out.
Yeah, we never came over to each other's house.
No, I didn't hang out with somebody until middle school, or actually 5th or 6th grade. I think I hung out with somebody after school at their house, and that was a one-time thing. My family wasn't comfortable with it. I wasn't, because I'd never done it before. We just hung out at his house, and I think we had like rollerblades or something, and we just rollerbladed a little bit. But other than that, I didn't go to anybody's houses. So my routine was to go to school, come home to my area, my space. I was not outgoing. I didn't go to parks or the mall or anything with kids from school, which I guess that was before our time too. I think socializing did you go anywhere? Like in elementary school with other kids?
Well, I didn't go anywhere specific. For me, and again with Hunter, being one of our tighter friends, he and I, because we lived right next to each other, or really close to each other, on the same road, and we would hang out all the time. We were into like professional wrestling and stuff, so we'd hang out. He'd come over to my house, I'd go over to his, and we'd watch wrestling or play video games and Rough House and stuff like that. So that was a lot of like what I did in elementary school, is we hung out together.
Yeah, see, I never had anybody like that. The road we lived on was very countrified. It was not, you didn't walk to each other's houses. It was, some were farmers, some were fishermen, that kind of thing, where we grew up in my house, like my childhood house. But I had my brother, so growing up, Hunter as well, that was his name as well. So there's 2 Hunters you're going to keep up with. But my brother and I grew up playing together. That was the only friend we really had growing up. I remember looking out for him during elementary school. He was like I was. He was very quiet, shy, and there's 3 years of difference. So when he started school, I was already 3rd and 4th grade. By the time, I don't know if he went to preschool or not. I had to ask him. Honestly, don't remember if he went to preschool as well or he started kindergarten. I want to say he didn't, and I was mad because I was like, well, you didn't have to go to preschool. And at the time, I thought it was like, why did I have to go and he didn't? I did have speech problems, though, so I think that was a lot of the reason my parents pushed me into it. I took speech all through elementary school. There was not a year I didn't have to go to speech class, and I still struggle with speech a lot, trying to get my words out properly. But yeah, what other... So I guess preschool's out of the way.
Well, and I kind of jumped off topic there because I wanted to kind of give a background on where we're from. But my first memory of you, right, is actually on the first day that I do remember. And it was, we were playing or whatever, and I know you didn't mean to, but you tripped me.
No, me? Couldn't have.
So, and we were playing, so it wasn't, you probably weren't even paying attention. So like you tripped me, and I was like, this guy just tripped me on purpose, because everything as a kid you think people do to you on purpose, they meant to do it. So of course the next day I was like, oh, I'm gonna get him back. And so you were running across doing something, and I tripped you. I was like, well, I guess you didn't notice or something. But
I don't even remember. So like it's neat it's so cool how memories work. How so many things are separate, and even the same situations are different.
Yeah, you remember things differently.
Yeah, so I don't remember any of that. but I do. I mean, I was a bully, like slightly. I don't know if it's because I was larger than the other kids, or I wasn't like an excessive bully, but I did things that roughhousing at home with Hunter we did, but you shouldn't do at school. You know, you shouldn't push kids. You shouldn't roughhouse with kids. I mean, you just shouldn't do that at school. And I don't know. So there was moments when like I forgot that.
Yeah.
I was at school and I was like, I'm gonna trip this kid, and it's like I should do that, but I would have done it to Hunter at home. You know, we roughhoused a lot. Hunter is my only sibling, so I didn't have any girls at the house. It was just me and Hunter. It was all boy talk, all like boy stuff growing up.
Mm-hmm. And of course, it was opposite for me because it's like, well, I'm the older brother, but I have a little sister, and that was who I played with, unless
Yeah.
And if I didn't want to play with her, it was like, all right, well, I guess I got to do something on my own, which was like, and of course, I had smart toys growing up as a kid. My parents got me like.
Do you remember the dog that you could press the top and it would start walking?
Uh-huh.
It was like gray and blue. I don't remember what
it was like
called.
Like a robot or something.
I remember them giving one out at school as a like a fair gift or something. Like whoever won the dog. And I think I won the dog, and that was the one I got. But I remember it would just walk. Yeah. On the carpet at the house. It
made like a weird noise.
Yeah, it would bark. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all like hard plastic.
But where were we? What was I saying?
As far as your smart toys.
Oh yeah, so I had like a toy that had like all the states on it, and you press a state and it give you all the facts, and then it had a thing where like it had all the presidents on it.
I can definitely see that being your kind of thing.
Well, and my dad told me, he was like, well, we got you those toys, because they were supposed to like make you smarter and stimulate your brain, stuff like that. And it stuck with me because I can tell you the capital of every state and facts about them and stuff like that.
My dad, growing up, my dad had one of the states where you put the quarter from each state in it.
Uh-huh.
So we did that. It was just like a small thing. And I remember trying to collect them. Like we would go to the stores and he would look through the quarters and be like, oh, we got one here. We did end up finishing it. I don't know if he still has it or not. But I think we ended up finishing every state, which was neat to us. But that was only nerds. Hunter and I, we had Nerf guns. We started off with Nerf guns, Army Men, G.I. Joes. My dad was not a firm believer of having toys. It was not for Christmas, my mom and dad, before they got divorced, which was kindergarten-ish time, I do remember a couple of gifts we got. We got like a Scooby-Doo tent and some Hot Wheel tracks and stuff like that. But then after they got divorced, Dad was very, very particular on picking toys because he thought they were a waste of money. He grew up on a farm, like with that kind of lifestyle. Mm-hmm. He would go fishing or go out in the woods and find stuff to do. He didn't get toys growing up. So he didn't see the point in getting toys that would just get thrown out 6 months to a year later. My mom, on the other hand, wanted to give us all kinds of toys. So we the Legos and stuff was what my dad would get us, something to get our brain working. Yeah. The Nerf guns come from our grandparents, so we would take them to our dad's house because our childhood house my dad ended up staying in had more rooms to battle in. Hunter would start on one side, I'd start on the other. Mm-hmm. And we'd meet in the middle, and we'd have a home base where all our ammo was stored. But all that was from our grandparents, which got us a lot of toys. I mean, we were definitely the kids that got spoiled by the grandparents. But as far as, let's see, so preschool was honestly just a blur. The next thing I really remember is kindergarten, going into school with divorced parents. We had counseling kind of from the teacher. Mm-hmm. She kind of knew the situation, obviously. So there was moments when my kindergarten teacher would consult me and ask how life was at home, and I was like, oh, leave me alone, like I'm fine, it's no big deal. Like I didn't get divorced. I was like, they don't love each other anymore. That was what I got. So as a kid, you don't really think about it other than now I go to two different houses.
Yeah. For me, and I don't remember a whole lot about kindergarten either, and I think a lot of that has to do with you just don't pay that much attention. Mm-hmm. I remember little things like nap time and
I remember
things
memories,
like that,
but I don't remember.
There was
not worth
like
talking
specific,
about.
No specific events.
Other than your concussion, that was definitely a highlight.
That's on the road. Of course.
So what was that, second grade?
No, that was like fourth or fifth grade.
Oh, was it?
I don't think it was fifth grade because that's the year I left, but maybe fourth grade.
So we were friends all through elementary school up until you left.
Right.
You left. I had no idea what happened. It was like, I don't know what day you left, but it's like I went to school, seeing you, I was like, I'll see you later. And then you didn't come back. There was no more. I remember asking people on the playground, like, have you seen William? Like, where's William? And they're like, oh, he left. He went to a different school. I felt betrayed. I was like, what do you mean he just left? He didn't tell me he's leaving. And that was it. I don't remember. I remember the day we were playing over by the community center. That was where we had playground at the time.
Oh,
we played that one sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it was then, and I asked a couple people, and they're like, oh, yeah, he moved. I don't know why he moved. As kids, we didn't know. And I don't remember thinking about it again. Like, it's like my brain just was like, oh, he went to a different school. There's no way for
you didn't know you were ever
going to contact somebody.
Well, that was 5th grade when I left.
Mm-hmm. But even in 5th grade, I didn't know how to contact somebody.
Yeah, well, back then that was before, like, even the internet was around, and, that was still when there was, like, dial-up and things like that. Yeah. And there was, like, MySpace, but, of course, you're too young to even know about that.
Yeah. So when you left, that was it. I just had to, like, keep going to school, and, like, I built other friendships, but I never built a friendship like we had after that. It kind of was just, like, I just hung out with people while I was there. And like I said, I never went to anybody else's house or anything, so I never built a friendship strong enough to was like, you know what, I'll go to his house and we'll shoot firecrackers or anything like that. It was like, I'll just go home, and that turned into, we eventually got video games at the house, and that was where I spent most of my time, was just playing with video games. Yeah. With Hunter.
I had video games, starting out pretty young. 4 years old was when I got my first PlayStation 2.
We played our dad's. We weren't allowed to play a lot of the games he had. He had like the Silent Hill, Resident Evil, the originals on PlayStation, and Grand Theft Auto. I think he actually had one of the original Grand Theft Autos. I think Vice City. I think that was PlayStation 2. But even then, he's like, you can't play this one. You can't play this one. So he had a different cabinet for his games, and then the ones we were allowed to play, which we were allowed to play Twisted Metal. Which was not...
that's not really...
But there wasn't any gore or anything. Right. It's just the cars blew up. But you didn't realize that the people in the cars were real.
But you don't think about that,
No, it was almost like a more explosive Mario Kart.
Well, yeah, as like a kid, you don't even comprehend death. You just don't understand it, which is, I think, a good thing, Because, like, if you understood it at that young of age, you'd be kind of messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, it would change a lot of things. And I think, with the divorce, that was a lot of my things. So I was... school wasn't really anything special to me. I tried to do really good in school, in elementary school. Mm-hmm. But even by the time I got 5th, 6th grade, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I just don't want to go to school anymore. And I don't know why, because I never had any bad issues with school. Yeah. But when I would leave school certain days, I had to go to my mom's house, and then there was my dad's house, and then my grandparents' house. So, like, as a kid, you're like, okay, Monday, Tuesday, I had to go here. Wednesday, Thursday, I had to go here. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I had to go here. And then, like, that was what I thought about when I was leaving school. Where was I going that day? Yeah.
Well, that's interesting that you had that type of schedule, because when my parents divorced, which was when... I really, again, so much of that area of my childhood is such a blur. Yeah. I want to say I was 7 or 8 years old. I don't know what grade that puts me in, probably 2nd or 3rd grade. But... So
they actually divorced before you switched schools?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
so they were divorced for a while. I thought that was...
Well, they split up and then they divorced.
Gotcha.
But when they divorced, my mother had basically full custody of me.
Gotcha.
So I was, and
that was
she
the thing
stayed
back then too. The woman used to get...
Well, she still does, really.
Majority of the time. Which I guess that was my situation too. My mother was really in control of when she got to see us and then when Dad got to see us. Without like getting into too much detail, we were with Mom technically more. It got to a point where Hunter wanted to go to the Dad's more, and I was fine with my mom's house. Like we had different rules. Mom was very lenient. We watched scary movies that we should not have been watching. Like Freddy and Jason and Jeepers Creepers. I remember watching, terrified to even go outside at night from Jeepers Creepers. And then also when I got on the bus, because of Jeepers Creepers 2, the bus scene, I was terrified of getting on the bus. Every time I stood up, I was like, I'm going to lose my head. This is it. Like, that was the moment. And then my dad was the opposite. We weren't allowed to see PG-13 movies in theater without, him approving it. So even like when some of the movies were PG for Disney and stuff, even back then he was like, I don't know if we want to go see that one or not. He was very, very strict on that, very church going
Yeah.
after the divorce, which is fine. It's just I had such a different scale. You
Yeah.
know, one I was like I could do whatever I wanted, and the other was like I can't do anything.
Yeah. That is kind of weird. So the only time I got to see my dad during that little period was, I think it was like every other weekend. And of course at this time you don't know what's going on. You don't understand what the divorce is or things like that. So you know, what I was thinking was like, well, my dad's gone, you know, he's
You thought of him as the bad guy,
kind of, and you know, and I think that had a lot to do with, you know, kind of what my mother was telling me was.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had that too. You know, there's always two sides of a divorce, and as a kid, they want you to understand their side, but they don't realize how much damage that does.
Yeah.
Because you're telling them like, oh, he does this or she does that, and as a kid, you try to take a side, and you shouldn't because. I mean, there's going to be two opinions on both. I mean, both have done wrong, I'm sure. Like, a marriage is two parts, you know. There's flaws on both sides. As humans, you make flaws in relationships for sure. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely had that. My mom told me this. My dad told me this. Yeah. And they were trying to get you to understand it, but what they didn't realize is that was causing more
stress, not friction, on you, but yeah, also that
with you and the other spouse, other, you know, parent.
But,
so I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I remember that for sure. So my dad, I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with him. So for most of the school week, I was with my dad. So my dad worked a lot, like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Like he worked all the time. So, and then he ended up going to school as well for his job where he's at still. And so growing up, I remember a lot of dad not being there. There was a lot of times when our grandparents picked us up because he had to work late or he worked a lot of the nights and stuff too. So there was mornings when he was just zoned out, dead to the world. We had to get ourselves up for school. We got up, poured our cereal, got on the bus. If we missed the bus, we were going to get in trouble. So Dad made it very clear, don't miss the bus or you're going to get in trouble. And our trouble was a spanking. So we're like, no, we're going to get on the bus. So, you know, I got myself up and Hunter up, and we got one wake-up call. Dad would come in and say, get up, it's time for school. And if we didn't get up then and miss the bus, we were in trouble. So like, as soon as you got that wake-up call, you're like, okay, get up, get dressed, brush your teeth, make some cereal. And then the bus would come out, you know, honk the horn, and we'd run out to the bus.
That was one thing I never had trouble with, was like, I was able to get up early. And I don't know why, but I mean, I would get up without even an alarm. And it'd be like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'd get up, I put on some clothes, and my great-grandmother lived next door, and I really attest a lot of the good parts of my childhood to her. But she was always up in the morning super early because, you know, she's the Great Depression era, the greatest generation, you know. So she lived on the farm, you know, grew up like that. So she was always up early in the morning, had coffee made and everything. So I would go over to her house and she would, you know, feed me, and I would get ready to go to school over there instead of like being at home, because I didn't exactly enjoy being at home due to the circumstances of my home life.
And ours was the same way. My grandparents definitely gave us everything. We were definitely, like I said, the spoilt kids from the grandparents. The toys, eating out, as far as like, Dad did not like us going to McDonald's or Wendy's or anything like that. So if we wanted fast food, it was grandparents, which wasn't a good thing. I ate way more than a kid should have growing up, which is a lot of my weight. I just, at an early age, I just started eating way more than a kid should. There was moments when, you know, Dad would try to keep us from eating as much and like make sure we go outside at least for, you know, half the times. But we'd get home from school and, you know, we had recess and you went to school. Like, I was mentally and physically tired from school, and then our dad pushed us to go outside as well after. Now I hated that because I was like, man, I just got home from school, can I just like relax for a little bit before I like do anything else? But it was like, you had that, I guess it was 3:30, 5 o'clock time where it's still daylight, so that was when he was trying to push us to go out. And we'd come in and it was like dinner time, then it was homework time, and then showers and bed. It was like a very set schedule, because that was the way he could keep up with it. I mean, he was a single parent for the majority of our life growing up, and it was just Dad at the house. So we did a lot of chores, vacuuming, dishes, even laundry. We would take the washer's clothes, put them in the dryer, set it, and Dad worked. You know, we fully understood that Dad had a really, really hard job growing up. He worked at a factory, so we knew that if Dad was at work or if Dad was tired from work. We didn't mess with him. We knew he was tired. And then Tuesday, just a normal day. It's weird because I remember certain days it's like set. So like Monday was like, hey, we all vacuum the living room or whatever. Hey, Tuesday we do the laundry, and then Wednesday we had church. We went to church Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Every night with Dad. Church was very, very important to him after the divorce, which is fine. It was great for us. I got into Church of Christ. My mom was a Baptist, so I would go to church in a Baptist church Sundays, and then Church of Christ on Wednesday, which they're pretty common. Like they have a lot of the same beliefs. So it's not like as a kid I was like, why does this church do this? Why does this one do this? The biggest one I remember growing up is Church of Christ.
How they do things.
Church of Christ didn't have any instruments. There was no instruments. You know how Baptists most of the time have a piano, or even more, like maybe guitars or anything like that. None of that at Church of Christ. It was strictly vocals.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, at least where we went to church, it was all. I think most Church of Christ don't use instruments. I could be wrong, but at least when we grew up, that was it. There was no pianos.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with so the times have changed obviously since we were kids, and I say that like we're super old, but
yeah, we're really 40, 50 years old. Like, you know what? This has been different this entire time.
Well, so when I really started getting into church, because as a child I really wasn't in church, that's just not what my family did at the time. But growing up and towards when I was becoming an adolescent, I started going to a Baptist church. Once my parents were divorced and my dad remarried, and I moved out there with him to live with him full custody, we started going to Woodburn Baptist, and that was my first real exposure to church. And I'd been exposed to God and I knew who God was and all that, but I never really paid much attention to it until I started actually going to church every Sunday. And that, I think really shaped me. And I remember back when I first started going there, it was just like a piano and, maybe some other like instruments.
Like an acoustic guitar or something like that. Like it's very small.
I don't even think there was a guitar at the time. Like it was very kind of traditional Baptist. But as the times have evolved and, that church I've seen grow as I grew up, they, you have to adapt to modern times in order to reach the younger people. Yeah. And the younger people like more contemporary music.
Also,
so they're going to use contemporary
I remember that at the Baptist church, we had piano. We still do. But then we also have a sound system now. So like there would be moments when they're like, well, somebody's going to sing today. And then they would get up there and sing. They didn't have instrument, but you had the sound system in the back that you would turn it up and you could hear like just normal background music playing, and then they would sing to it. Yeah. But we never, like I said, we had guitars here and there later on, but for the majority it was just a sound system. Right. That was how they got to the younger generations. So we were in the generation of where CDs become popular. I remember having a CD player and the overhead headphones, and on the bus, and we would trade out CDs. I remember the Nickelback CDs growing up. I think 6th grade, I think was when that happened. But we were in that moment. So growing up, going to church, it went from basic piano to, like you said, drawing in the younger crowd. Because most of my church growing up was older people. We didn't have a lot of youth in the church. So they were trying to find ways to keep these kids coming back. Yeah. Vacation Bible School and trips. And stuff like that. Which I was never a part of. I was always afraid to be in the youth groups. I didn't go out. So they're like, well, you want to sign up for this? And I would fight it. I just like, no, I don't want to go to these water slides or these. I mean, they did fun stuff, but I was just a very secluded, afraid to be with other kids. Just, I liked my routine. Go to school, go home. And that's where I want to stay. But Dad, with our church on Wednesday, was complete opposite. We had to, Tuesday and Wednesday for sure, we mostly studied our lesson. We went to a class on Wednesday night. So while the adults were in the main room, the kids were in different, depending on the age group, you went to a different classroom. And Hunter and I were in the same classroom. So a lot of times we'd get in trouble because we just didn't care. As a kid, like you said, as a kid, you just don't think about it, what you're really learning. But we would have the same class together and have a lesson. So you had to do a lesson every week. So every Wednesday we would eat dinner, we'd get ready for church, and then we'd practice our lesson. Maybe we would have to speak in front of the class, or maybe we'd have to remember a verse, or anything like that.
Just traditional Sunday.
Yeah, trying to get it in your brains. It's curriculum, really.
Yeah.
It's to teach you the Bible and teach you the ways of, following Jesus.
Well, I never really liked Sunday school. That was something I never got into. I was a part of a youth group, though, once I got of age to be in a youth group. And I got to do cool things, like we went to a music festival, a Christian music festival, and, we stayed out there all weekend, and we got to see, people preach, and then we also got to see the bands play, so that was really neat. And then I also got to go to summer camp, which was cool because I'd never been to camp before, and it was the only time I've ever been to camp. But
yeah. And all this was separated. We didn't know each other through any of that. That was...
Yeah, that was a blank spot in our friendship,
So we both had these experiences that neither one of us knew anything about. It's crazy. So, did you get Nerf guns growing up? As far as
not.
So you got directly into airsoft?
No. So I had Nerf guns once, kind of like my parents had divorced, but before then, I was never really into that stuff. Like I had a BB gun.
That's surprising to me because obviously later on we get into the same hobbies, and we'll save that for another time and move up as we progress in our ages. But it's interesting to me. Nerf guns was my gateway into airsoft and paintball, whereas I guess so you didn't have that much beforehand. So
right. So what I was into, and I guess to kind of give you guys some clarification, I kind of split my life up into two segments. I split it up into before I moved in with my dad, living with him, and he had full custody of me. So before that point, which is what I call just the first half of my life, and then everything else is after that. So during that first period of my life, I wasn't into guns. I didn't really care that much for them. And I don't know why, but I was more into like skateboarding and playing basketball and.
I never got it. We rollerbladed. I remember going to the skate park or the what is it? The what do you call it? The skate
park?
No, it's not the skate park. It's the ring.
Oh,
skate ring.
The
was it the skate ring?
Skate box or something like that.
Skate box, skate ring. I don't even know if it's still there. Honestly,
yeah,
I think it is.
It's gone.
Is it gone? I don't know.
Be.
But I do remember for sure going there and rollerblading. We had a ton of fun. You did like chicken dance and stuff out in the middle of the ring. But that was the only skating I did. I never went to a skate park. Never got into skateboards or anything because I didn't hurt myself. Growing up, we had those twist scooters or whatever, the ones that spun around that would hit you in the ankles and stuff. I hit myself in the ankle a couple times and I was like, you know what? I'll just ride my bike. Bike's a little bit safer.
Yeah, of course. So I loved the skateboard. That was probably my number one passion. I had all the Tony Hawk games. I would go outside all the time and I'd just practice skateboarding and riding around. And I had a huge, long driveway, because of course I lived so far out in the country. The driveway connected to the road, and then the driveway went all the way back, probably a quarter mile to the house. So, and it was hilly, so, I could ride down and up the hill, and, and it was paved after, about 4 years of living there. So once we got it paved, it was free game to, ride bikes and playing the skateboard and stuff. So I really like doing stuff like that, playing sports, which is interesting because after I moved out and in with my dad, that's really when I started getting into military stuff and veering away from sports in general.
I never got into any sports. I remember 6th grade for sure, right before we went to middle school, and that part of our life began. I remember band class. It wasn't a band class. It was more or less you signed up for it and they taught you about instruments. If you had an instrument, you could go to it. But I didn't have an instrument, but they sometimes would come in and play, and I was like, well, that's cool. Maybe I'll play an instrument someday. I never did in elementary school. I did in middle school. Like I said, we'll probably start that next time, or at least pick up where we left off, branching into the adolescent age, the interesting time, I think, probably the most interesting time in our lives. I think definitely for me was that point in our lives. But as far as elementary school, I did think band was cool. I just didn't have an instrument. I didn't have the money for an instrument. But that was the only thing. I never got into any sports. Hunter did play baseball, so I did go to his games. And when he was in elementary school, he was really good too. As far as kids go, he was into it. He enjoyed playing, but at the same time, he had a bigger brother at home that was like, "Hey, you want to just play Xbox?" So I think me being the way I was really hindered Hunter from branching out more and doing things like that. Because at the same time, he's like, yeah, I like playing Xbox. I remember, like,
There's a way for you guys to hang out too and bond and stuff like that.
Which we bonded a lot outside too. But as far as the divorce goes, Hunter definitely sided with Dad, and I sided with Mom as kids. So there was that wedge between, like, I would mention something about Mom, and Hunter would get defensive, like, oh, well, this is what Dad said, and we had a lot of that back and forth, which is nothing against anybody in the situation. It's just, like I said, you as a kid, you take it differently. You get defensive about things that, and now I look at it, I'm like, that's just stupid. Like, why did I even care?
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because it was the opposite with me. So once, and of course I said already at first, yeah, I was just not happy with what my dad was doing, and that, you know, but that once I moved in with my dad, me and Alyssa had kind of the reversible thing, right? So I was on my dad's side, and she was on my mom's side.
Yeah.
So we would go back and forth about the same stuff, you know, and that would continue throughout our teenage years.
Yeah. And ours did too. I mean, there was, and later on, I, stopped going to one parent or the other for majority of time just because I was happier in another place. And at the time, that's what, as a kid, you're just like, I just want to be here. This is,
you just want a place to be.
Yeah, and that was the thing is, so you went from Mom's house to Dad's house to grandparents' house. And you're like, there's just so much going on, so many different choices. As at Mom's house, you got away with more stuff. Then you had to change your role and go to Dad's house where you couldn't get away with some stuff. And you went to grandparents' house where they really didn't know what was happening at the other two. So they just learned who you were. So like, what do you like doing? And well, at that time you're like, oh, I like cards, or I like this game. And then they're like, well, we'll get you this game, or we'll get you these cards. And I mentioned a couple of the Pokemon openings on the channel that we would get like 1 or 2 packs a week. Hunter would get a pack and I'd get a pack. And there was a lot of fights. Like I would take a card, or he would take a card out of one of our packs, and we'd like, this is mine. They're like, no, that's my card. And we got in a lot of fights growing up. I think it's just a boy thing. I think
it's a sibling thing. Because like me and Alyssa, we would go at it too, just as much.
Physical? Like, I'm curious, did y'all get into physical altercations?
Of course. I mean, as siblings, you're just, and of course, probably not nearly as much as you and your brother did, but...
We pretty much would get a toy and get it taken away within the same week. So we would get guns, like toy guns that didn't shoot or anything, but they ended up being swords. So we would take one of them plastic rifles or whatever, and just one of us would hit the other one. And then we never got them back. Like, the Nerf guns were the only thing we ended up getting keyed because they had foam bullets. Yeah. So we realized that it's like, shoot the bullets, don't hit them with the gun. Yeah. So we ended up using those there in the pool, or just in general. Like, we would set up the house at the grandparents' house the same way we did at Dad's house. You'd set up in different areas, and just the whole house was warfare.
Yeah. Me and Alyssa, the stuff we would get into fights about would be like, I don't even remember what we'd fight about, to be honest. It'd just be annoying, I think, each other. Like, one of us would annoy
get on the other's nerves so much that you just like,
and then
I've had enough.
All of a sudden, like, one of us hits the other, and then we're both in trouble.
Yeah.
Which, of course, Alyssa was the baby, so most of the time
I was always the one that got grounded.
Yeah.
Hunter definitely, I think it's just, like you said, a younger sibling. You're supposed to be the older sibling to them and set the example. So anytime you got to that point, they're like, you need to be the better kid. Do better, like, so they do better. Like, so I was like a training goat for Hunter.
You were the guinea pig.
Yeah. No, like, you should know better. And then Hunter, don't do that just because he does it. And it's like, oh man, really? So,
which, I mean, and I'm sure we can go into another episode of being like older siblings and how that.
Oh, for sure. Like, definitely after elementary school, our lives changed drastically. Hunter and I actually didn't live together at points in our lives. So he, like I said, sided with Dad and I sided with Mom. There was times in our lives where he was at his house and I was at Mom's house all week. There was times when we just didn't see the other parent. Yeah. And so we definitely drifted apart. And got back together once, like, you get older and you're like, you know what, that was dumb. That was their decisions as parents. That doesn't have to affect our relationship as brothers. And you learn that just because your parents made decisions, don't make them your decisions. Like, you shouldn't have to side for a parent.
Yeah. And that is just so crazy, And I see it now with my sisters right now, and when me and Alyssa were kids, you really you really do. You feel like you have to pick a side, and that's not what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're just supposed to, you know.
You're supposed to be a kid.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to experience things like that. But I am thankful. I'm not thankful that they got divorced, but I'm thankful that I have the knowledge of what it does to the kid, so that I never want to put my kids through that. I mean, I don't have kids, but future kids, I don't want to ever put them through what I had to go through as a kid, and give them that strain of trying to pick sides and go through different houses. We moved a lot growing up.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm glad for those experiences, but at the same time, that they're not experiences you would want to wish upon your kids.
Yeah. I will say, for me, looking back on it, at the time, of course, I wasn't thankful for it, but now, looking back, I definitely am thankful that my parents divorced, because, I mean, my home life improved tremendously.
Right.
It was so much.
And I think if you were to not get divorced and you had a explosive relationship, and your kids seeing you guys fighting more, I think that would also change how you were as a person in the future. If you've seen how your parents acted together, you would take that as this is what marriage is. That's what relationships are. So yeah, I think getting out of a relationship when you're not happy, even if you have kids, is the right choice. If one of you are not happy, no matter the situation, the kids will learn from it different ways. So yeah, if they had stayed together and tried to make it work and gotten more arguments in front of us and it had went different ways, even if we were older, so like you were older than I was, I don't remember many things as a family. I have a couple of Christmases together, but I don't remember them being together. And Hunter definitely doesn't. Hunter was definitely too young to even remember them being married and together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I've talked to my dad about it since, and he, I tell him, I'm like, well, while you two were married, all I remember as a kid is, I mean, I'd be sitting there doing whatever and just in the other room just yelling back and forth and shouting at each other. And I mean,
as a kid, it's terrifying.
It's horrifying. And, and you're like, well, what's going on? Am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, is it your fault?
Yeah. And so having that type of just uneasy living environment, that's why I spent so much time with my great-grandmothers, my grannies, is because I was out of that environment.
And we did too. That's crazy, because at our grandparents' house, there was no sides. It was like they were only worried about what we were involved in. Yeah. They didn't care about what our mom did or our dad did. They were like, well, here you guys can play games, or y'all can swim in the pool, and y'all can have whatever you want for dinner. We had that free range where there was no sides. It was just... You
felt like you were a kid. Like
you could just do what you wanted to do. And, I mean, that's not good to have that freedom, but it was like a relief of stress on your shoulders. You didn't have to, like, tiptoe around situations. Like, well, if I mention this, Dad will get mad. If I mention this, Mom will get mad and ask questions about the other one. I remember both parents saying, well, do they let you do this, or do they let you do this at their house? At the grandparents, it was not that. It was just like, no, you shouldn't do that, or yeah, you guys can do that.
And that is weird. I remember my parents doing the same thing. Well, what do they let you do?
It was a questionnaire.
Like, yeah, you got interrogated.
Yeah. It was like, so what'd y'all do at your dad's house this week? It's like, it was a loaded question. You were like...
And of course, you're not thinking... Or
you did at first, but I remember growing up, I would be like, oh yeah, we did this, we went here, and they're like, oh well, that's cool, and then they would try to compete with that.
Yeah.
But then growing up, I was like, we didn't really do much. You didn't want to really like.
You're like,
too much.
Yeah, you only gave certain
specific details.
Yeah.
You're like, well, did y'all have sweets late at night? You're like, no, we did fine. We just, but maybe we did have hot chocolate that night or something. But you didn't mention it. You're like, no, we just didn't do anything crazy. We just, did the normal.
Yeah.
But it's nuts that.
That's what happens when...
I mean, you didn't go to any kind of counseling, did you?
So I have never went to counseling, and I probably should have, because there's a lot of stuff in
I think most people should
have
somebody to talk to. My kindergarten teacher was definitely mine. I didn't have counseling, but she would also ask me how I was doing every week. She made it her goal to make sure I was doing okay with the transition. Both parents took different routes, and they wanted to make sure the kid wasn't struggling with any of that. And I think the teacher was that person. Maybe my parents told them. I don't know if the parents told them that, hey, we're going through a divorce. As a kid, you didn't know what divorce was. So as a teacher, they realized what kind of strain that was causing as an adult on the child.
And on that, I do want to take an opportunity, since we're on the topic, of to say that teachers, one, to thank all my teachers, our teachers,
for sure.
And all the teachers out there, because without you guys doing the jobs you do, you take care of the children, especially the ones that are...
And you're with them a lot, too.
Yeah.
I mean, my teachers were with me just as long as my parents were, yearly, You think an hour a day, or elementary school, you had hourly classes, right? You had, like, periods, right?
Well, in elementary school, you stay with the same teacher all day, except for when you go to, like, your specials.
So you were with a home teacher. I remember Miss Cash was my 6th grade home teacher, but then I also remember, like, for an hour I went to the other teachers.
Well, yeah, and that was later on, but like in kindergarten and first grade, you had the one teacher,
and you did different curriculum. I think, like
yeah, they just taught you different subjects.
I think that's when you had nap time and stuff. That was like the transition period where you were like, all right, we're going to learn about cursive writing for an hour, and then we're going to have recess, or we're going to have a 15-minute nap break.
Yeah,
and that was when you transition, like, okay, now we're going to do math. I don't really remember. Do you remember much about your curriculum, like elementary school? I don't. I just remember being there. I like learning things, but I don't remember how it worked as a...
Well, so most of my elementary school memories, I remember right before I left, so 5th grade.
Because that was in a way, a traumatic experience. Like, it was...
Well, yeah, and you're kind of getting older at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I was 10 years old, so it was like, I knew kind of what was going on, and I can remember a lot of that stuff. And then, so from then on, I remember a lot about school, and just about life.
That's why I was saying that. What I remember is definitely after that moment of getting older, probably about the same age, you start remembering. So I was like, yeah, you go to these different classes, but that was, like you said, later on. Elementary school, I don't really remember how it was taught, how it was about. Like I said, you had nap times and breaks, but I don't remember much about it other than just learning. I know how to do 2 + 2 because at some point in there I learned it. But it's a blur. It's just like memories are clashed together.
But I remember, and this is a specific event that I won't get into too much detail in, but one of my teachers, it was my art teacher, I want to say it's probably about 1st grade time frame, so I was about 6 years old. But I remember drawing something about my home life, and then all of a sudden, that drawing, right, I had my guidance counselor come, and then some other lady that I didn't recognize was there interviewing me at my home with my mother and my father sitting there on the couch. And they're like, you want to tell us about this drawing? And of course, like, I don't know why they're asking me this question.
Right.
And as a kid, and what I've learned since I've been in my EMT class and kind of learned about how children should act towards strangers, I acted exactly how a child would act, So I'm looking at my parents like, why are they here? Why are they asking me this question? And
you feel trapped in a way.
Yeah. So when they're asking me about this picture, I'm looking at my mother like, just kind of looking for cues of what she wants me to say.
Yeah. You're looking for answers in a way, like, I don't know why I'm in this situation.
So even though like it's a picture of something that happened to me, I am telling them something, like, oh, well, that's not exactly what's happening in that picture. So I remember that, and obviously down the road I realized that is my guidance counselor in CPS.
No.
So, but...
So it's a big deal. I mean, once they're involved, they're almost overly nosy, but they're just trying to be there to protect you. I mean,
right, absolutely.
In some situations, it's life and death for kids, so they have to take every situation serious because they're really walking into a situation that they have no years of knowledge in.
Right.
They're fresh into who is this kid and why am I here?
Yeah, and of course, talking to my grandparents too, they told me that was not the first time they came out there and stuff like that. So, and learning that about my childhood and not being able to remember things like that is kind of freaky. Like, because I've taken a psychology class before, and they tell you you repress bad memories and stuff like that if it's too much for you to handle.
Right.
So I think that's why a lot of my childhood memories before around that time were just so I can't remember it. But that goes back to me saying, teachers make such a difference in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying my parents...
And there are bad teachers, too. I mean, there are some that just are there for a paycheck.
Yeah, and ones that don't care.
Yeah, they're just there
or they're
for a
burnt
job.
out or something.
Yeah, maybe they've had a bad year, and so the year after, they, instead of saying this is a fresh start, they're just like, last year was terrible, I don't really care this year. I mean, they don't realize how much of an effect that has on those kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was definitely some elementary teachers that I had that were there for a paycheck. That were not evil, but just mean. Like, they were just mean to all kids. And then, in your situation and my situation, home life was not the greatest. There was good parts and bad parts.
Right.
But school was a way for me to, like, that stayed at home.
Get out of that.
Yeah, it was like, I was there for the, curriculum and what we did. And recess was awesome to us, and lunchtime and, like, those in-between breaks. But also, the teachers have such an effect. Like, I remember cursive writing was when they started doing the active boards in school. So we actually went to the cafeteria to learn cursive. And I had to teach myself cursive later on in life because the teacher at that time did not care. They're like, here's this book, learn cursive. Mm-hmm. Well, cursive is a big deal later on in life. Like, you need to be able to write your name in cursive, sign your name.
Yeah, I still can't read cursive.
I can read cursive, but I cannot write cursive unless it is the letters involved in I know how to sign my name.
Yeah.
But as far as, like, I can't write a Z. I couldn't tell you how to put a Z in cursive.
Yeah.
But I could read a Z in cursive. But I don't remember how to process writing it.
Yeah.
So there's moments like that when if the teachers are not in it 100% for the children,
then it sacrifices your education.
But I definitely had better teachers over bad teachers. Like, there was definitely a higher ratio of good teachers and bad teachers. Probably 2 out of 10 were bad. The other 8 were phenomenal and always there for me. Even not just the kindergarten teacher, but first, second grade for sure. I remember both of them really being there for me during the divorce, and they still would ask me, like, weekly, like, how's it going at home? And looking back, it's probably looking out for situations like yours. So do they need to get somebody else? Do they need a guidance counselor? Because I didn't outreach for people to, like, situations.
Yeah, you weren't asking for help or anything.
Because I didn't have bad parents, like, as far as
they weren't. Yeah,
I didn't have any verbal or physical reasons of why I hated my dad or mom. Like, and I don't. So, like, I never really outreached for somebody to help me at home because it was fine. I never thought, hey, this shouldn't happen at home.
Well, and that's funny because for me, I didn't think this shouldn't happen at home either. But I thought what I was going through, everybody else was going through too. So it was just like, I didn't say...
You felt it was normal.
Yeah.
Like, this is what happens at home.
That's kind of crazy looking back on it. It's like I thought some of the stuff that was happening to me was just I had it coming, or it was just normal or whatever. And I think kind of just not reaching out for help in a way kept me in a kind of a good and bad place, because it's like, I'm still going through some of this stuff, but then I'm also like, I'm not creating even more friction, because let's say I did get taken away or something like that, then that's a whole different thing that I know as a kid you wouldn't want to deal with. And I feel bad for those kids who have to go through that, because you get stripped away from your parents, which...
And sometimes both. I mean, sometimes, like, both parents are just not in a good situation, and you just are uprooted out of the situation and taken somewhere else. Like, I could not imagine. Like, I'm very fortunate. So, like, my parents blame themselves a lot, both of them, for our childhood. They're like, well, I didn't do this, or I should have done this more. And I look at both of them and I tell them both, y'all did what y'all thought was best at the time. And I know that sounds very cheesy and usual, but honestly, like, they were going through things too. Like, your parents both were going through trials in their life.
We had young parents.
Yeah. I mean, definitely for me. I mean, they were both high school lovers, and here I am. And so, they didn't know what they were doing. Like, I'm looking at my life now as my age, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine having a kid now, and they were younger than I was.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine having a kid out of high school and trying to be there for them and build them into a person.
Well, I mean, because you don't even know how to act yet. You're just like...
Yeah, and how small of a detail affects a child. Like, we remember certain things of our childhood that they probably don't even remember. They probably don't even remember certain situations. Like, oh, I don't remember that happening, but you remember it so vividly because like that's what you as a child, pick up. You just pick up certain topics. Mm-hmm. You believe it's almost been an hour in this already, and we've gotten through 6 years of our life. 8 years of our life.
Yeah, I would say roundabouts elementary school.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Not exactly on topic of our friendship, but...
No, but I think it's very key that you would know these things about us.
This background.
Yeah. I mean, how do you...
Because our paths are so parallel, in a way, you know.
But then also so perpendicular. Like, we go together for so long, and then we just take different paths completely. But then they come back together, and it's crazy to me. It was completely random, too. Like, if certain situations hadn't happened... I definitely don't want to get into middle school in this one, because that changes everything. My first year of middle school changed my entire life, really? For sure. And put me on the path of finding our friendship again, for sure. Mm-hmm. Like, if I had stayed where I was going into middle school, we probably would have never met. It probably never would have happened. So, like, it's crazy how it happened, why it happened. Mm-hmm. And definitely is a good topic to start on the next one. But as far as this, I feel pretty good about where we started. Like I said, so, people that are watching this had no idea certain things about us. Mm-hmm. This is going to go out to the public. Like, my work life sees this, my family sees this, my friends see this, and they may have not had any idea
of some
child life experiences. And they might relate to some of them too, which I think is good for this. Like, I think that's one of the big key things we want to touch on is we're not the only ones that had these experiences. So, right. If this reaches somebody that's
going through the similar or has been through similar things.
Yeah. Maybe they can relate, or maybe they can be like, you know what? Yeah, I felt that way about that too. And maybe it jogs your memory. Maybe you remember something, you're like, I can't believe I remember that,
and if you have things to add to the conversation, like things that helped you out.
I would love to hear funny moments too. Yeah. Like, definitely.
Which we're in subsequent episodes after this one, we're going to really tackle into the more
in-depth situation
of like our friendship. So This is kind of like giving a background of where our friendship kind of blossomed, but we weren't really close friends.
Which you haven't been. You used to do YouTube, so you have that a little bit of experience, but it's been a long time. Whereas I've been putting out videos weekly, so I'm a little bit more comfortable in this situation. But this is new to both of us. Like, sitting here,
podcast.
Yeah, this is new territory for both of us to just sit here and start somewhere. How do you start your life story in increments that somebody, a complete stranger, is going to follow?
Yeah.
So I think starting here was a good idea. I think
we
building that foundation of what made us who we are, and our parents' relationship in elementary school, I think, is a solid point for both of us. Even though they were completely somewhat opposite. I mean, like, we both had divorced parents. I think maybe that was why we reconnected so well later on. We both had those situations.
Yeah, I mean, we both had a sibling.
Yeah, we both. I mean, at that time we had one sibling, and kind of the same. Like you said, you did skating and wrestling and stuff like that. Whereas it was really just me and Hunter, and so I was very secluded to myself.
Yeah, and honestly, I had a lot of friends growing up. Like, not just you.
Do you think they knew? Do you think they knew? Like, do you think their parents mentioned to them, like, hey, are you guys being good to that kid in situations?
I'm not sure.
Because I don't remember any kid ever asking about my parent. It's so common for kids to have divorced parents, though, even then. Like, marriages don't last. Yeah. A lot of kids have divorced parents, and I don't remember ever thinking about a certain kid. I remember being a jerk to kids, and who knows, they might have been a foster care or like, I never knew about their home life. There were some weird kids in our classes that everybody kind of steered clear of, but maybe they were going through stuff too as an elementary kid, for sure.
Yeah.
You weren't
everybody processed something differently, so.
But now when I look at somebody, I look at what have they gone through, because of what I've gone through. But as a kid, I didn't ever sit across the table from somebody and be like, I wonder if he's getting bullied at home, or I wonder if he's not with his mom, or maybe his mom's not, has passed away, or you don't look at it that way as a kid. And I hate that, because maybe there was a ton of kids that were going through stuff like I was, but I was just too scared to reach out to somebody else.
Yeah, and of course on my side it was like I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was normal. So for me, it was just I was still able. I was social enough to be able to go out there and make friends. I was still shy. I mean, especially as in elementary school, I was super shy still. But I was able to kind of make friendships still, which I'm glad I was capable of doing that.
And also I didn't have any friends after you left really, other than Hunter Foster and a couple others that I talked to occasionally at school consistently, or like at recess and stuff. But Hunter had friends. Hunter was more outgoing, and he was like the cool kid of his age group.
Yeah.
So Austin lived up the road from us, which is Hunter's best friend, and he would come down to the house. He would have to drive. We'd have to go pick him up from his house. He wasn't that close, but he was close enough that we could drive a minute up the road, grab him, and then come back down. So Hunter and Austin were really my friends growing up in elementary school. So we would have Nerf wars and stuff at the house. They would be on a team, or we would all have a different spot. So one would start in the laundry room here, one would start in the master bedroom, and then the other side of the house. And we'd meet in the middle. And it would end up being them two against me most of the time. But we'd split the guns up. So I would have the big gun, and then they would have smaller guns. It would just be a challenge. But definitely, even now, looking back, like Austin and I are close. Austin is Hunter's age. But as far as friends go, Austin was...
just as
now, yeah. As far as good of friends, Hunter and Austin and I were friends up until middle school, and that's when everything shifted for me drastically, like that.
And before we kind of get off here and put a stop to it, I do want to cover two stories. So the first one being the rock incident,
which I had no part of. Like, I was there, but that was not me. Like, I didn't even understand what happened.
Well, so, all right, and I guess I'll start with boys are stupid. Young boys are stupid.
Yeah.
And so we're on the playground, and I'd say it's probably fourth grade, right? And,
well, it was before you left for sure.
Yeah.
So.
And that's another thing we're going to cover right after this, because we keep referring to that point, and I want to make it clear what we're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the rock incident was...
We threw rocks at each
other.
Yeah,
we threw rocks at each other.
I don't know how we didn't get in trouble for it before this happened, too, because this was a consistent thing every recess.
We probably did it
about a week. About a week probably before, because the way we were as kids is you started doing something and it died off at recess. So we're like, maybe we played with Pokemon cards down at the basketball area for a little while, and then those kids continued doing it, and then most of the kids followed something else.
Do something else.
At some point, somebody chucked a rock at somebody, and everybody's like, rock war. So like we had rock wars. I think that's what we called them.
Yeah.
And it was probably about a week's time. It seems like it lasted forever. And it's probably a couple times.
It seems so like why would we even think that's a good idea? Like,
it's going to hurt.
We're climbing on, and we're not even taking into account the people who are not playing against us.
Yeah, we could
get hit.
We could have hit one of the petite girls over in the corner and been in some serious trouble for throwing a rock and hit somebody else. Yeah. But if it hit us, we were like, he got me. And like, it hurt though. Why would we?
So we're throwing these rocks, okay, and we're climbing up and down this gym set. I don't know what to call it, but it had the slide.
It's definitely an elementary school gym set.
Playground set.
It's not one you buy from. It's industrial size.
Yeah, like it's a big thing. It had a bridge and a slide and a pole and stuff like that, and a ladder. So the ladder is the key to the story. Okay, so one of our friends, Travis, he's up on this play set. And
was I up top or down below?
I
don't remember if I was hiding up. I feel like did you mention his name already?
Yeah.
Okay, so Travis was up top. I think I was up top at the slide. I think me and him were together, and I think you and Hunter Foster were the other two.
And there could have been more people playing too, but this is like our immediate.
The ones I can remember for sure that were in the situation. So I was up top, I think, with Travis.
And Travis was up there, and he doesn't see me coming up this ladder, but.
I think he was actually kicking rocks to somebody else, right?
He might have been.
I think you were trying to sneak up on us, honestly.
It's probably true. So
it's a freak accident, too. Like you said, he did not mean
this was not his intention. Because obviously, even though we're throwing rocks at each other.
There was a safe distance.
Yeah, there was like a safe, we weren't throwing them too hard or anything.
Yeah, it wasn't like I was from here to you and I was going to lob a rock at you. It was like way over there.
And all right, so we probably shouldn't say we're throwing them. We're kind of tagging each other with them.
We're not elementary kids.
We're not beaming them at each other. But we're tossing them at each other enough to where you can feel
it. We thought it was hard, but like I said, it was elementary school. So what kind of strength did you really have to lob a rock and hit somebody and do some damage?
And these are they're not huge rocks. They're probably like pebbles or something about that big.
They were in the mulch, weren't they?
But so I'm climbing up this ladder, and there's this rock that's sitting on the floor of this playset, and
it was probably one that y'all had thrown at us, honestly.
Yeah, right.
So we would really attack like the area, and like you said, I can't believe we didn't hit somebody who wasn't involved in it at all. But you would kind of attack it. So you had some people attacking the tower, and it was terrifying up there. I remember that for sure. And now just talking about it, you would hear them hit the slide,
like the slide and everything.
Or you would hear them hit the like poles. Like, oh man, that was really close.
Yeah, and it would make a noise that would put some fear into you.
Yeah.
And why we kept playing, God knows.
We did not play any after this. I know that for sure.
This is what did away with this fad.
Yeah.
So this rock is sitting up there, and of course I can't see it, but I know that that's where it was. And so Travis is kicking these rocks off of the set into this field that's behind us.
Mm-hmm.
And as I come up, he doesn't see me coming up. So I poke my head up over the top of this ladder and where the floor is, and he's already kicking. And he kicks it, and it lands right in the center of my forehead.
Beams you right in the forehead.
And I mean,
you fell off. You fell off the ladder entirely.
Kind of. So at first, I kind of sat down. So I plopped down on the top bar. And it, just like the cartoons, it was like I had the stars and the birdies going around my head. And then I just kind of fell backwards and smacked the back of my head on the mulch.
Yeah, thank God you didn't hit, there was log beams, like the railroad type beams that separated the grass from the mulch area.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God it was far enough away that if you'd fallen off there and hadn't hit that pole or the wooden beam, I mean, you could have been seriously injured, even worse than you were.
Yeah, and of course... And everybody thinks I'm playing at first. They're like, all right,
what
William,
a wuss.
Get up,
it's not that big of a deal.
Little baby. And I'm just kind of like dazed and confused, like what just happened to me. And I'm not bleeding, but boy, do I have a goose egg that's forming right there on my forehead. And so I just kind of, they finally kind of get me up because I was kind of out of it. But they get me to stand up, and I just kind of walk off and go sit by the teachers.
He never got in trouble for it, though.
Yeah, we didn't get in trouble for it.
We never told anybody who... We just said he got hit in the head with the rock. I don't think you... I mean, maybe you had mentioned the name, but
I didn't say anything to anybody. You guys...
We were not narcs.
We weren't ratting
on we were throwing rocks. So y'all shouldn't do that.
Because then we'd all get in trouble, of course. So it's like, we'll just not say anything. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, so I remember the next morning, I tried getting up out of bed, and surely enough, I went to stand up and just immediately fell over to my side and onto the ground. And so I got to stay home that day, and I found out, because I went to the doctor, and they said, I might have a minor concussion or something, just keep me home for a day. So I was okay. I don't think I had any actual brain damage from it or anything, because it obviously wasn't hard, we were just kids, but it was enough to put me out for a little bit.
Yeah. And that's at the time. That was a day after. So, I mean, you slept on it. So, you're not supposed to do that, I believe, when you have a concussion. You're supposed to stay awake.
That's what they used to say back in them days. You weren't supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But, of course, I didn't know I had a concussion, so I just was like, I'm kind of sleepy. I'm
just got this big old whelp on your forehead. Did your parents notice at all?
If they did, I don't remember. Of course, at this time, my parents were divorced, so I just went home to my mother.
One or the other, right.
And my mother probably didn't notice. She had her own things going on, obviously. So. Well,
I think the battery life is about to die on the GoPro. So.
We'll cover this last story pretty quick before we get out of here, and that is me leaving elementary school, which was in 5th grade, and this was at the time when my dad got custody of me. So there's an interim period where I moved away from my mother and with my father's parents while my dad and his new wife finished building the house that we were going to live in.
The house they built was the one that you
grew up in.
Like the rest of your childhood.
So 5th grade, I knew I was moving away, and I knew I was moving with my parents. And while I was with my grandparents, I was still going to Richardsville, but I kept telling everyone, I was like, hey, I'm going to leave soon. And I'm probably not coming back. And so I'd say goodbye to everybody just about every day, and they'd be like, well, when are you leaving? And finally it got to be like, what's the story of the wolf? The boy who cried wolf. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like they stopped believing that I was going to leave, and then one day I vanished.
Gone. Because like I said, I don't remember I don't remember you ever telling me you were leaving. I don't remember you telling us a lot of times. Maybe you did mention it, and that just didn't stick with me. But like I said, it just gone the next day. There was no remembrance of, oh yeah, he said he was leaving. He really did leave. There was none. I don't remember that at all. It's just one day you're there, one day you're not. You know. And we had different classes. I don't think we were in the same homeroom.
Yeah, we probably weren't.
So we seen each other at that time at recess only. So if we didn't hang out at recess or lunchtime, I didn't see you, I don't think, that year.
Yeah.
I think that was the year we had different classes. Most years we were together earlier on, but definitely towards the end we did. So we just seen each other maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day.
Maybe lunch.
Yeah.
But
we did branch out and have other friends. There was other people we talked to. I remember Cody and a couple other people that, like I said, we had different classrooms, so I talked to them more. So at cafeteria tables, sometimes we didn't sit together.
Yeah.
Just because you start changing, you start branching out, and we both were experiencing different things.
Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that point right there is where we kind of enter a blank period in our friendship where we were no longer seeing each other every day, and
that would have been 5th and 6th and 7th grade for sure. Up the beginning of 7th grade. And like I said, that's when things change for me, and we do reconnect, but it's not physically. Like we connected through, at this time Facebook blew up. So Facebook for kids, we, faked our birthday, and we had Facebook. Mm-hmm. Even to this day, I think my Facebook still had, when I created it was definitely before I was of age of creating a Facebook. 6th grade, I did break my leg. You weren't there for that. That was the one big thing that happened to me in 6th grade for sure. I got detention in 5th grade. So you left. We got detention, Travis and I. Mm-hmm. And I think one other kid, if I can't remember his name, that got it as well. I think Hunter left too. They're shortly after, right?
He might have. Because he was with his dad was with my mother at the time. Mm-hmm. So
I believe he went to Warren Elementary, I think, for 5th and 6th grade. So I lost you and Hunter Foster both in the same amount of time, and it was like I just kind of was there. So 6th grade, Hunter and I got into a roughhousing. I'm going to keep it short, but Super Bowl Sunday, we went to a mom's friend's house, and we were roughhousing. We didn't care about the Super Bowl, and I went to fake jump on him because I knew I'd hurt him if I really jumped on him, so I kind of shifted my weight, and when I did, he pushed me as well. My leg stayed on the couch, and snap went my leg. It was so to this day I still blame him for my broken leg. Only bone I've ever broke, to my knowledge. I've cracked knuckles a couple times, later on as an adult, but as far as a kid, that was the only bone I've ever broken, to my knowledge. And it was not a complete break. It was one of those fractures where it's a hairline break, I think is what they call them, which they say is more painful. But that happened, and then middle school happened. I definitely think we should end there before we get into middle school, pick up next time.
Yeah. Really,
for me, was a turning point, and we met each other again. It's all over again. We had to relearn each other because, as kids, 5th, 6th, and some of 7th grade, that's almost 3 years.
When you're changing in that time, you're becoming a teenager, and you're starting to learn, and you're starting to kind of mature a little bit. Not a whole lot, but you become a different person. You start becoming,
like you said earlier, you remember things. That's when I really remember. I remember my leg break. Very, very specifically what details. That's like you said, when you start really becoming who you are, and you start remembering things. And the memories before that is really what's kind of pushing you in the direction of who you're going to be, but you don't really base that on who you are. Parents divorcing and stuff. Yeah, I remember I don't want to go through that as a kid. Or I don't want my kids to go through
specific. You never remember anything specific.
Yeah. So, I think that's definitely, we're definitely over an hour, or very close to an hour after we edit everything. I think it's a good place to stop, don't you?
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening in. If you have something to contribute, maybe some stories of your own, if you want to hear more stuff in specific about, more funny stories or... which we'll get a lot more into as we're growing up, because that's more stuff that we remember. Let us know, comment it, send us a message, something like that. We'll be happy to hear from you. To our friends and family that are tuning into this, thanks for checking it out. Thanks for your support.
Yeah, and don't take anything serious or too harshly. We're going to talk about things that involve people in our family and friends. we're not mad at anybody. You know, it's just the way the life went. But I don't hold any grudges to anybody in my family or friends like you. There's no hard feelings on my side for sure. I'm very thankful for the way that I became who I am. I don't regret anything in my childhood.
I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, we are who we are
Mm-hmm.
because of what we've been through, and you know, I guess we consider ourselves not bad people. So
yeah, for the most part, you know.
Yeah, there are those things. But all right.
So that's gonna do it for us. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.